Lisa, will you come?
Good evening, folks. My name is Lisa Whaley, and I'm the General Manager and Editor of the Herald Tribune. And we want to welcome you tonight to the 2016 Town of Jonesborough Election Forum. Also want to thank our candidates for taking part. Our moderator tonight is going to be Judge John Keener, and he'll be asking questions, many of which were supplied by our readers. And I just wanted to have a couple of notes here. First off, I encourage you folks to turn off your cell phones for the duration of the forum so it's nice and quiet. And then second of all, I just want to remind you that we aren't taking any questions from the audience tonight. We're going to try and keep this as simple and straightforward as possible. Each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to answer each question. Candidates will also be given an opportunity for a 3-minute opening as well as a 2-minute closing. So as you can see, you're going to get a lot of information tonight. We ask you to just relax, sit back, take notes if you want to, and enjoy this year's forum, the 2016 Town of Jonesborough election.
I am John Keener. Thank you for coming. We're going to try to get you out of here in 90 minutes. That means that the question and answer period will last about 20 minutes for the candidates for mayor, 20 minutes for the candidates for alderman. Now I know that that's not enough time to cover all the questions you may have about the town of Jonesborough, but I'm sure that the candidates, because they have an audience here, will stay around after the program if you have specific questions that we did not cover. With that, sit back, relax. You're going to enjoy the next 90 minutes, and we're going to begin with an introduction, a 3-minute introduction of Mayor Kelly Wolf.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say thank you to the Herald Tribune for this opportunity. You're serving an essential role that a small town newspaper has served historically, and believe it or not, some of them no longer serve. So it's a big deal. Thank you all for coming out tonight and being a part of this. You know, local government is the government that can make the most impact on your lives. We read about and unfortunately have to hear and sometimes watch politics on a national level go on, and there's a big difference between what happens on the national level and what happens here in Jonesborough. There's only one layer between you and your local government, and we're all standing up here, or at least most of us are. There's some in the audience. And you know, you can see that person in the grocery store and you can talk to them, you can call them up, and you can, you know, have something that you need addressed. It's a very intimate and very interactive thing, and it's a good thing. And I got involved in Jonesborough government 8 years ago because I decided I wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to see things done better in some ways than what they had been, but then even better would be the best way of putting it, because Jonesborough has always had a lot going for it. Jonesborough is a wonderful little town. I have a good friend who I walk with 2 days a week at the gym. We do a little speed walking when my knees aren't cooperating as well. He's a city planner at an undisclosed local city that I won't get into. But I'll tell him a little bit about what we're doing and kind of bounce ideas back and forth, and he'll say, "How'd you guys pull that off? How in the world did a town the size of Jonesborough do that?" And I'll grin, and I'll just say it's Jonesborough. And we've got a passion for our people. I think we are a very tight-knit, family-like little town. And we're also very hospitable. We just welcomed 10,000 friends into town for the Storytelling Festival, and it was a resounding success. And the town looks beautiful. And we give our credit to that to the folks at Storytelling here and thank them for letting us host this forum here tonight. And we also thank our town employees who do such a wonderful job here in Jonesborough. So I'm running for re-election because I think there's business yet to be completed. We've got a great record over the last 8 years. We've accomplished a lot. We've paved 35% of our streets. We've fixed our leaking water system that was losing 61% of its water. We've built a new sewer plant. Some of those things cost money when we did them. Well, actually, all of them did. But we did them in a way in which it was done as economically as possible and with the biggest bang for the buck possible. And that, in my mind, is good conservative governance. When you're making investments that pay dividends for a long time, and you're making it in today's dollars and setting up your residents, your taxpayers, and your ratepayers to benefit. Is this the Gong Show? All right. Thank you.
Charlie, it's time for your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Most of you know me. If you don't, you will. Some of my fondest memories of Jonesborough connected with this town when I grew up here. On Saturdays, I could remember my pa taking me up to Pug's hamburger stand for a burger and a sweet tea. I remember in the summertime, Jonesborough days, when we had a real Jonesborough days, was really something. Boy, did I love those snow towns. In this town, I've been a husband, a father, a brother, a son, a veteran, and two terms as alderman. Also a member of the Jackson Park Church of the Brethren. As I've had a chance, my wife and I, to go door to door and meet some of you, we've run into a lot of new folks in Jonesborough, and they have a lot of concerns, as I do too. Some of which, our water, our public water is in bad need of repair, from the lines to the quality. Not only our drinking water, but our runoff water. Where we're doing economic development, we need to be a lot more careful about our streams, our tributaries that feed the Little Limestone Creek, which, as we all know, feeds the Nolichucky River. As you all can tell, and people that know me pretty good talker, but something I've learned the last 3 or 4 years is to be a good listener. As my dad would say, if you listen, you're going to learn a lot more. I appreciate y'all having us tonight. Appreciate y'all being out here. Thank you very much.
I think you've noticed Crystal Hawkins is here, and she's giving us the signal so that we try to keep the candidates, and they're mostly very respectful to our time limits. The first question tonight is for...
We get the microphone.
Yeah, if you'll, and you don't have to come back up to the podium. If the two of you will just pass that microphone back and forth. Go ahead and talk into it, make sure that it's working. The first question we have for you, Mayor Kelly, is what would be your management philosophy, or what is your management philosophy as mayor?
Well, that's a good question. You know, my wife and I, who, by the way, I failed to recognize. Jenny, would you raise your hand, please? I have several bosses, and she's my favorite, most favorite of all of them, by the way. We run a small business, and, you know, if you are going to succeed at all in the business world, you have to be able to delegate. You have to be able to identify people with talent, hire them, pay them what they're worth, put them in a position where they're supported and let them perform, and insist on results. And I think that's exactly the management style that I brought to the town of Jonesborough. You know, it wasn't too long ago that we literally couldn't accomplish some of the most basic tasks. We literally couldn't do some of the most basic things that our citizens were expecting us to do. And it wasn't really the fault of our employees. It was the fault of how our management structure was situated. You had really one person trying to do the job of about 4. And when I came on board, I decided, well, hey, we can do better. Let's reorganize. Let's get this thing organized and tasked better. Let's insist on results. And then the final thing we did was after we hired an operations manager, we decided, these people need to work for the town for more than just the love of Jonesborough. They actually need to be able to make a living. And so we raised the pay of our employees 25% over 5 years. And that, folks, was during the recession. And I don't know of any other town or any other county, any other government period. Heck, the state was cutting folks' salaries and giving no pay raises even. That was able to accomplish that during that period of time. So support your staff, hire the best people you can, pay them the best you can, and insist on results. That's my philosophy.
I guess where we differ is probably on our management philosophy. The one thing I will agree upon, when you've got the money to hire the best people for the job, that is a good thing. But we have to look at where we're spending our money. Our water system, once again, is in bad need of a raid. The lines that have not been replaced, we do some patchwork, for the lack of a better word. But we need to start from the intake. We need to test our water. We can have this done by either TDEC or EPA, whoever we need to get involved. And here again, we've got some good employees. I'm not putting blame on them nor anyone else. And these are things that have been going on for some time. But we need to take a closer look at the infrastructure of the town and make sure it is up to par before we start spending extra money on things like the Jackson Theater and other things of that nature. While tourism is our #1 industry, if the people can't drink the water, they're not going to come to Jonesborough.
Next question. This is a question that I've done several of these that we get every time. As mayor, what steps will you take to encourage new business to open up in beautiful downtown Jonesborough?
Beautiful downtown. Okay, well, we've been doing a lot to encourage that. We've had all kinds of activity of late. I'll tell you what we did about 3 years ago, is we hired a Main Street coordinator in Melinda Coffin. She's done a phenomenal job working with local business, working with the Merchants Association, creating all kinds of new festivals, creating a steady and consistent stream of people, as much as you can, downtown to support these businesses, these doors being open. The Jackson Theater, Charlie just criticized, I guess, obliquely there, is a big component to what we see as a major boom to the downtown. We think that will be a tremendous way to bring people into Jonesborough, say about 300 days a year. Several other towns have done that, Harriman, Crossville, and Franklin. And I visited the one in Franklin, and we've had staff visit the other 2 theaters. And each time we visited those theaters, the folks who have developed them say they have far exceeded the expectations for bringing people in. They've had a tremendous economic impact. And quite frankly, I've heard a lot of folks from the community talking about how when they were little, they used to go to the Jackson Theater, and they'd pay a nickel for this and a dime for that, and they want to see a movie there again. And I think they'll be able to. I think what we're going to offer in that project is a triple threat of movies, plays, and musical performances. And between those 3, I think we can make a big impact and really help solidify the gains that we've made downtown. And I think you look downtown. I had a call last week, or 2 weeks ago, from Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey as he was driving through Jonesborough. And he said, I just want to call you, man, and tell you how beautiful your town is and how great a job it looks like you guys are doing. And I said, thank you, Governor. I said, you've made that possible with the prison labor, partially. And I said, but it's a team effort, and we're working on it together.
Once again, as we were going door to door, my wife carried front row here, and my mother behind her. We also talked to a lot of the merchants downtown, and their biggest single complaint was there was not enough direct communication from them to town hall. Yes, true, there were a lot of spur of the moment things put together. The big complaint there again, the merchants didn't have time to get ready for it. We have a restaurant that's moving out of downtown due to the lack of traffic. They're moving to Johnson City. Now, while the Jackson Theater, yes, in reality would be a wonderful, wonderful thing. We're looking at $500,000 grant that we received. We must, as a town, come up with that other $500,000. Now, can we do that and take care of our streets and our water? I hope so. But it's something we really, really need to look at. Our line of communication. It's wonderful to hire people to go to and fro, but these people have told me another story.
Walking up and down the street and talking to people, and both of you have touched on this subject. This is the question I get most often, and that is, in Jonesborough, is there a conflict between spending resources for arts versus spending it for infrastructure? How are you going to reconcile those two needs? Mayor?
Well, I'll just tell you, I think that you're thinking about it the wrong way. I term lifestyle type things and quality of life type things as quality of life infrastructure. You know, people don't move to a town because of it having nothing to offer. People move to a town because they feel connected to it. People move to a town because an interest that they have is represented by that town. You know, you would be foolish, quite honestly, to try to do one or the other exclusively. You have to do both in order to bring people to Jonesborough. We did have a good water system, Charlie. I know you're beating on that pretty hard tonight, and I admire it. But, you know, we're rated 98 by the state. Johnson City's 98, Kingsport's 97, Bristol's 99. We got what was the equivalent of a ticket for jaywalking with some dead-end lines having some chlorine byproduct build up in them. We're very proud of our employees at the water plant and our guys out here working the system. When I came in to office, we were losing 61% of our finished water before it got to your faucet, and that was because, Charlie, back when you were on the board, regular maintenance wasn't done, and you weren't providing the funds you needed to make the system as tight as it could be. What happens when that goes on unabated is the state can come in. They will actually take over your water system if it's bad enough, raise your rates, implement the fixes, and you've lost all control. You're simply along for the ride. So that's not a good solution.
Well, once again, you need a balance of both. You do want people to come to town. But going door to door, I see a whole lot of for sale signs, and those people are more than happy to talk to me and tell me why. It's everything from the lack of communication to the street being paved just before election time. They're pretty intelligent folks. However, they would let me know that they're still going to be here long enough to vote. I was very thankful for that. And yes, the water problem has been an ongoing problem. It has been for years. But we need to start, once again, at the source, and we need to repair. There's money out there. We can put new lines in. So I totally disagree. It can be started from one end to the other, and it's very important.
This question gives you a chance, and don't be modest, please. Both of you have been public officials.
That's an oxymoron in politics.
Both of you have been public officials. In your opinion, what has been your most important accomplishment?
Well, why don't you ask a broad question, Judge? You know, I think the most important accomplishment that I can see in the 8 years that I've been on the board and been fortunate to be there is the fact that we've had good boards to work with, and we've had more or less a team approach to our problems. You know, when you're in a small town and your resources are limited, fighting amongst yourselves is entirely counterproductive. And you don't have enough time, usually, with volunteer board members to fight and work together. It's usually one or the other. And so, you know, by and large, we've had good groups of folks who've worked together. We've had differences, and we've worked together to overcome them. I'm proud of the fact that Jonesborough is a loving, caring community that have people invest their time, free of charge, to serve on a board of mayor and aldermen and work together to make a community better. So the thing I'm most proud of is being a part of that team, and we've tackled a lot of things in the last 8 years, and we've got some more to go.
During my 2 terms as alderman, I served on 2 different boards, meaning at first I served with then Kevin B. McKinney, which is no longer in town, and I came in when the water park first opened up. It was the hottest thing going in Washington County by far. Everybody was tickled to death. Now, I'm not going to take credit for the water park because it was already built when I came on board April of that year, 1999. And everybody was tickled. Some people, yes, there were some naysayers out there, but we gave it a shot. Now, the bad thing about that's been, it's been in the red since day one. Now, we need to do something with this. But getting back to things that I felt like I accomplished, indirectly, I guess you would say, it was my idea to have the board be split up, so to speak, that when we had an election, it would be coupled with a county and or state, possibly federal election like this time. That was my idea. And what I mean by split up was that the 4 folks that ran, and of course for mayor would be 5, the 2 highest vote getters would sit on the board for 4 years. The least 2 vote getters would sit there for 2. Now, while some of you may not see the importance of this, that keeps some experience on the board. That was one of the biggest things I accomplished, besides meeting and finding a lot of new friends in town. I love this town, folks. I love it with all my heart. I live in my great-grandmother's house on Wood Road. I don't know of any other person that loves this town more than I do. I want to take everybody's ideas. I don't have near all the solutions, but I'm a fix-it man. I want to fix things.
You've already talked about this topic, but as we have gotten emails from citizens of the community, this seems to be a topic that everyone is interested in the answer. And the question is, what is the condition of the Jonesborough water system? Discuss the issue of fluoride and halo, citric, whatever they are, acid in the water system.
I call them those acids. Well, let's just clarify once again, the acids that have appeared in a fraction of a percentage above the norms in dead-end lines in less than 5% of the systems have been corrected. And that just required flushing the lines a little bit more. And the state, under the direction of the EPA, and you know, the EPA never overreacts to anything, so the state, under the direction of the EPA, requires you send out this card that has some rather ominous language to it. Well, it doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't tell you that this was in one testing site. It doesn't tell you that it's been okay now for the last 4 months. It doesn't tell you that Jonesborough's water plant is rated a 98 and our system is in great shape. You know, we have spent a lot of money on our water system, tightening it up, putting in pressure reducing valves, reducing pressures. Charlie, you probably remember, but when you were on the board, you guys were running pressures of 250 PSI in parts of the system that were only rated for 125 PSI. And that's what gave us all those leaks. We fixed that now, and we've made the system pressures more consistent and more compatible with the type of pipe we've got in there. And we are continuing to perfect our plant. We've added another settlement basin to it to increase our production. And what you've actually seen as a result of all this is a couple of things. Well, one, we've replaced a bunch of meters that saved us some money, but you've seen the amount of water we have to produce to keep up with demand go down. You've seen the consistency of pressures go up, and customer satisfaction overall improve. And so I would say that by and large, your Jonesborough water system is in excellent shape.
Well, here once again, I realized when I was on the board before times were a little different. We didn't have near the money to operate with, and even though I was only one vote on the board, I pushed very, very hard to have ductile irons put in any place that we were running new lines. But here again, folks, let's call it what it is. The state does not mandate to send out cards when everything's just okay, and you just have a tap on the shoulder. Really? There's people, not just in Jonesborough city limits, but way on down in the country. They feed their animals, their livestock. They're dependent on this because a lot of them have well water. A lot of those wells are contaminated. So they have to use our water. Is there testing? Sure there is, but we have to ask for it. We need to continually monitor it. Yes, there's been some good things done, of course, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. Why settle for good when best is attainable?
Those of you who were good enough to ask questions and got those questions to us, I apologize that we can't go through each of your concerns specifically. So here's what we tried to do for the final questions for our candidates for mayor. Besides the water system, what other parts of the town's infrastructure need attention in the future?
Well, obviously, we need to keep paving streets, and we've been doing that. We're doing it now. We do it at the end of the year, because that's when the county highway department lets us do it, and we pay a very, very reduced wholesale rate for the asphalt and the labor. That's something we need to continue doing. We recently worked and received a $500,000 grant, here again, for the water system, to go back and replace leaking lines that are chronically leaking. We've got some on Main Street in Jonesborough. You've probably seen the mud in the road several times recently, and that is an 80-year-old cast iron line that continues blowing. I want to say one more thing about the water system. The level that the, whatever that acid was found in those dead-end lines, you'd have to drink 2 liters a day of the water for 70 years to have a 1 in 10,000 chance of catching cancer from it. So let's put that in perspective, people. 2 liters, and that's a lot of water a day, and drink it for 70 years and get a 1 in 10,000 chance of catching cancer.
Who wants cancer?
And so we have a great water system. We are improving the water system. We do have old lines that are going to be replaced as part of infrastructure. Our sewer system is in great shape for the next 30 years. And I will tell you that is a result of a team effort where we literally begged, borrowed, and clawed our way into a $11.5 million plant, and we only ended up having to pay $6 million for it because of the grants that we got. So it's a wonderful thing. We addressed that head on, and folks like Jimmy Hall and our own David Sell, alderman, don't have to put up with human waste showing up in their yards and their creeks anymore. And again, that's something that wasn't addressed, Charlie, when you were there.
First off, the lift stations, or as some of us that have done this line of work before, pumps. Jonesborough has a lot of those because of the way the land lays. That's just the way it is. Mr. Sales pump, because we've talked extensively about that. The new sewer wastewater people did help get that fixed. That was a pump problem. Yes, when the pump's not working right, something's going to run out. And no, it's not pretty. And yes, it was running out in the creek. Mr. Sales was not the only problem. Those are continuously need to be monitored. They have done quite a bit better here lately. As far as the infrastructure, yes, we need to work more on the water. As far as the paving, and I don't know, I can't see everybody's face because of the lights, but here again, going door to door, subdivision to subdivision, we went to Timber Ridge. And I'll tell you something, folks, it's deplorable. The roads have not been paved in quite some time. These are complaints of those people. This is not stuff I made up. Brush was sitting alongside the road where the grass was dead. Ladies that live by themselves complaining of no police sightings. They only came out, if called, 2 or 3 times. So, yes, I guess that is kind of to do with infrastructure, because they're not being taken care of. I guess we look at it just as sewer and water, and yes, that's a huge thing. But let's call things what they are.
Yes. Gentlemen, thank you. It's now time for your 2-minute summations. Mr. Moore, we'll begin with you.
Once again, folks, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. Thank the Herald Tribune for having us. Folks, if you've not already voted, I know we're just into a couple of days of early voting. You all and everybody else is going to make some very, very important decisions. Not just with our town, our county, our state, our federal government. But like Mayor Wolf said, it starts here, where the people, these folks, whoever's sitting in the mayor's spot, are going to make and help make the decisions that run this town, that see that the water quality goes much higher standards. Why should we sit back and say good is good enough when best is attainable? Because we do have some good people. At times they're stretched to their resources. I want to see this town do better. I want to see people, business people, move into downtown on the bypass, as a lot of people call it, 11E. I don't want to see for sale signs in people's yards. I don't want to see closed up due to lack of business. There's a whole lot more we can do. We need to regroup, back up, and look at the big picture of things and use all the resources, whether they be state, county, and let's be fair, okay? Let's be fair to those subdivisions that have been neglected. And here again, if any of you all are out here, you know who I'm talking about. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you to the Herald Tribune, and Your Honor, court didn't start on time, but you're going to end it right on time, so I'm glad to see you haven't lost your touch. You know, every time I'm around John Keener and he introduces me, he manages to gig me some way, so I like to gig him back whenever I get the mic, get the opportunity. You know, being the mayor of a town like Jonesborough is a lot of things. You get to wear a lot of hats. You're the head of the complaint department sometimes. You're the chief gopher other times. In my case, you're the construction consultant a lot of times, which I don't mind a bit doing. But what you really have to do and you really have to focus on is being the chief ambassador and cheerleader. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. I talk with groups. I get invited to talk to the Chamber of Commerce. I get invited to talk to the county leadership group coming up here this next 2 weeks from now. You get requests all the time, and you have to put your Jonesborough hat on, and you have to be convincing about it because you want people to believe not only in what you're doing, you want people to believe that your town's on the move and that it has a positive image. And if it's all doom and gloom, it's hard to convince people that they want to relocate to Jonesborough. If it's all doom and gloom, then I don't think you're going to do a great job selling. And so we may have problems, and we did get a card in the mail, and we have addressed it, and we are improving. But by no means is the sky falling. You know, all those for sale signs means somebody's moving into town, is how I see it. It's not necessarily somebody's always going out. And as somebody who sells a lot of houses, there are a lot of people moving into town, let me tell you. And they come here because they believe in our town. They like what they see. They enjoy the quality of life, and they want to be a part of it. So if you want to see Jonesborough continue getting even better, I appreciate your vote. And I thank you all for being at the forum. Thank you.
We're about to address questions to the alderman, but all of you may want to stand up for a minute and stretch. I know an hour and a half is a long time, but we'll get to it. Okay.